The wind came first, sharp, dry, and full of grit. It swept over the scorched plains and through the dead branches of old mesquite trees, whispering warnings only the land could understand. Then came the rider, alone on a chestnut mare, framed against the horizon like a ghost risen from stories best left untold. Cole Rawlins hadn't crossed these parts in 7 years, not since the Red Wolf gang lit a sheriff's office on fire and vanished into the canyons with blood on their boots and silver in their saddlebags. Time had worn the edges off his name, but it still echoed in saloons and jails, spoken low, like a prayer no one dared believe. He wore no badge and bore no mark, but the dust caked in the seams of his coat, and the way he sat his horse told the truth clearer than any wanted poster. He rode not like a man returning home, but like one chasing a memory with a gun at his back. Ahead lay the Vane place, the old mission, once abandoned by priests and rattlesnakes alike, now stood proud as a ranch house. Its stucco walls were whitewashed fresh, the roof mended with hands that understood both hammers and sorrow. The bell tower remained, though it hadn't called to anyone but crows in decades. Eliza Vane stood on the porch, rifle resting against her hip. She'd seen him before he crested the ridge. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a line that once had been soft with laughter, but now held steel. She wore a wide-brimmed hat, shadowing her face, but not enough to hide the flush rising to her cheeks. "You're late," she called, voice dry as the air. Cole dismounted slow, every movement deliberate. "Didn't know I was expected." She didn't answer. Instead, a small boy peeked from behind her skirt, freckled, with his mother's chin and a pair of wide, curious eyes. He couldn't have been older than 6. Cole's eyes lingered too long. "He yours?" he asked, a hint of something sharp beneath the words. "No," Eliza said. "He's mine." The silence between them stretched, taut as a tripwire. The mare pawed the earth restlessly. "I heard tell you took up raising cattle," Cole said finally. "I heard tell you took up raising hell," she replied. A flicker of amusement crossed his face, the kind that used to draw women to him and make preachers reach for their crosses. But Eliza didn't move. She stood rooted, rifle steady, chin high. "I came to talk," he said. "You should have sent a letter. You would have burned it." She considered. "Maybe." Cole took a step forward. The boy tensed, clutching his mother's skirt. "Easy, kid," Cole said, softer now. "Just here to see an old friend." Eliza didn't lower the rifle. "You're here for more than that." He nodded, slow. "I won't lie to you. The gang, they're stirring again. Tomas Boone's got eyes on this territory. He wants a way in. I figured I'd get ahead of it." "And you thought I'd be your key?" "I thought maybe you'd want to know," he said, voice rough now. "Thought maybe you'd still care." "I buried my father because of your gang," she snapped. "We cared once. Then you vanished and left me to clean up your war." Cole's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. From the barn, a man emerged, gray-haired, broad-shouldered, wearing an old hat pulled low. He carried a pitchfork, but moved like he knew how to use far worse. He stopped beside Eliza, nodded at Cole without smiling. "You've had your word," the man said. "Time to ride on." Cole looked the man over. "You the hired hand. I'm what she needs." Cole glanced at Eliza again. "Seems you got yourself a guard dog." "I got myself a man who keeps his word," she replied. Boaz didn't flinch. The wind picked up again, stirring dust into the air. The boy sneezed, and Eliza placed a hand gently on his head. Cole stepped back, as if the sight of them, the boy, the man, the woman once his, had drawn something from him he wasn't ready to lose. "I didn't come to steal," he said. "Didn't come to fight." "Then ride on," Boaz said. Cole looked at Eliza one last time. "I'm not the man I was." "No," she said quietly. "You're the shadow of him." He turned, mounted the mare, and rode off without another word. They watched until he was no more than a blur swallowed by heat and dust. Inside the house, Eliza poured water for James. Her hands trembled just enough for Boaz to notice. "You all right?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, "He'll be back." Boaz nodded. "He's not riding alone," she added. "I figured." That night, she stood by the window, staring out into the desert while the boy slept soundly. The stars stretched above, cold and clear. She thought of Cole, of the man he used to be, the boy who stole apples and kissed her beneath the mission bell. She remembered the way he laughed before war, and fire turned him quiet. And she remembered the letter that never came, the grave dug by her own hands, the ranch rebuilt from ruin. He'd ridden far for what he wanted, but her heart had chosen long before he ever turned his horse toward home. Boaz rose before the sun, as he always did. The air was cool then, still honest, before the desert heat began lying to men, mirages in the distance, sweat that tasted like fear. He moved with quiet precision, feeding the stock, checking the fences, running his hands along weathered wood as if it spoke to him in a language only old cowboys understood. From the porch, Eliza watched him, arms folded, coffee cooling in her tin mug. The weight of Cole's visit hadn't left her shoulders. It clung like dust, fine, irritating, impossible to shake. "You didn't sleep," Boaz said, not asking. "Didn't want to," she replied. He nodded once, returning his eyes to the fence post he was mending. There was a silence between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of years, full of things never said. "James asked if Cole was my brother," Eliza said. "Said he looked like me. I told him no, that he was a story we don't tell." Boaz paused, leaned on the fence. "Boy's smart. He'll know there's more to it." "There's always more to it," she said, eyes far off. "But not all of it's worth remembering." By noon, word came up the valley. Boone's riders had passed through Dunlap, a half-day west, leaving the general store burning and the sheriff's deputy hanging from a telegraph pole. No one challenged them. No one dared. Eliza read the message twice. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't curse. She folded the letter carefully and slid it beneath a stack of ledgers in her desk. Then she walked to the barn, where Boaz was sharpening the mower blade. "Boone's coming," she said. "I figured. He'll come through the canyon. Same route as before." Boaz wiped the blade with a cloth and set it aside. "He wants Cole. He'll take me to get him. Then we give him nothing," Boaz said. Eliza crossed her arms. "You're not the law." "I ain't pretending to be." She looked at him a long time. "You still carry steel?" His gaze flicked toward the loft, then back. "It's buried, but I know where." Eliza didn't press. She turned and walked out, boots heavy on the hay-covered floor. That evening, Cole returned, not from the front but from the north trail. He looked worn, like he hadn't slept. His coat darker with the kind of dust you find on old trails and regrets. "I told you not to come back," Eliza said from the porch. Cole dismounted slowly. "I'm not here for you. I'm here because Boone's not bluffing. He's not like he used to be. He's worse. The gang listens to him, now like they're starving dogs, and he's holding the bone." "We can handle ourselves," she said. Cole glanced toward the barn. "That's so." Boaz stepped from the shadows, arms crossed. "What do you want, Rollins?" "Same as you. For her not to die screaming in her own yard." Boaz didn't flinch. "Then stay out of the way." "You don't know what's coming," Cole snapped. "I know men like Boone. I know they bleed." Eliza looked between them. Two forces from different lifetimes locked in a silence, built from grit and gunpowder. "You have a plan?" she asked Boaz. "Some things we can fix, some things we can't. But I won't let him take what's ours." Cole's voice dropped. "You don't understand. He's bringing a dozen men. At least. You can't outshoot them all." "I don't have to," Boaz said. "I just need to outthink them." Cole stepped closer to Eliza, his voice softer now. "You can come with me. You and the boy. I can keep you safe." She met his eyes. "You keep saying that like it ever meant anything." He swallowed. "You used to love me. And I used to believe the world was kind." Boaz turned without a word and disappeared into the barn. Inside, he pulled up a loose floorboard and lifted a canvas-wrapped bundle from the earth. It smelled of rust and pine sap. Inside, a saber, the kind cavalry officers wore at the close of the war, its edge still true, its handle darkened by time and memory. He held it for a long time, staring at the curve of it. Then he wrapped it again and laid it across the saddle he hadn't used in years. That night, they held council under the stars, Eliza, Boaz, and Cole, seated around a low fire near the corral. The horses stirred nervously, as if they could feel what rode on the wind. "I know the canyon," Cole said, drawing a map in the dirt with a stick. "They'll come through the North Pass. There's only one way in and one way out." Boaz nodded. "We trap them there. Narrow the road. Use the rocks. They'll scout ahead." Then the scout dies quiet. Eliza watched them, listening. She didn't speak until Cole mentioned taking James east, out of harm's way. "No," she said. "He stays with me." "Damn it, Eliza," Cole snapped. "This isn't about pride." "No," she said. "It's about roots. And this boy deserves to know what they are." Boaz met her gaze. "He'll be safe. I promise." She nodded once. As the fire burned low, Cole glanced across at Boaz. "I've heard stories," he said. "Back during the war, a Union scout named Boaz who tracked men through the deserts, never got caught. Said he was a ghost." Boaz didn't answer. "Was that you?" Cole asked. Boaz tossed a twig into the fire. "No." The fire popped. No one spoke again. The wind changed sometime near dawn. Eliza felt it first, brushing her cheek like a whisper. "The desert's warning us," she said. Boaz stood, walked to the edge of the yard, and looked out across the land. In the far distance, black shapes moved, slow, determined. The gathering storm. He turned back toward the house. "It's time," he said. They came just past noon, when the sun stood high and merciless, flattening shadows and turning the desert into a furnace of silence. 12 riders, their horses lean and cruel, faces masked with dust and bandanas, eyes hard with promise. Tomas Boone led them, tall in the saddle, draped in a black coat, like a preacher of vengeance. His hat cast a long shadow, but none longer than the one that trailed behind his name. He reined in his horse, just outside the canyon's mouth. The rocks to either side rose like jagged teeth, ancient and watching. He lifted a hand, and the gang halted, the sound of hoofbeats falling into uneasy quiet. "Don't like this," muttered Jeb Hollow, one of his lieutenants. "Too still." Boone grinned. "That's 'cause we ain't started yet." The canyon was narrow, one way in, one way out, exactly how Cole had described. Boone had heard the whispers that Rollins was ahead of him, and Boone loved a good chase, especially when it ended in blood. Behind the rocks, Boaz lay flat, motionless, the saber at his side and a repeater across his arms. His breathing was slow, controlled, eyes fixed on the gang leader below. Not yet. Timing was everything. Eliza waited with James in the cellar, her hands clenched tight around the rifle, heart pounding loud enough to echo in her ears. Above, Cole crouched behind a barrel near the porch, his revolver drawn, watching the road like a man waiting to settle a score. The trap was simple. Let the wolves come close. Let them think they own the land. Then remind them who it truly belonged to. Boone signaled, and the gang rode forward into the pass. The first blast came from the left, Boaz's shot, clean and sharp. One rider dropped, his scream clipped by dust. Panic flared in the others, but Boone didn't flinch. "Spread out," he barked. "Find the shooters." More gunfire cracked from the rocks. The gang scattered, firing wild into the stone. A second man fell, his horse fleeing without him. From the ridge, Cole opened fire. His shots were quick, practiced, carving into the confusion. The riders tried to regroup, but the canyon gave them no room to breathe. Then Boone did something unexpected. He dismounted, ducked behind a boulder, and began to laugh. "I know that shot," he shouted. "That's you, Rollins, hiding like a dog." Cole didn't answer. Boone turned to the men nearest him. "Push forward. We flush him out." As the gang surged deeper into the trap, Boaz moved again, slipping between boulders like smoke. He cut down another man near the back, vanishing before the body hit the dirt. But the gang wasn't just brawn, they adapted. 2 broke off toward the ridge, trying to flank Cole. He shot one clean through the neck, but the other made it close, forcing him into hand-to-hand. They tumbled into the dirt, grappling, fists landing heavy. Cole came out on top, but his lip bled and his hand shook slightly when he picked up the gun again. Down below, Boone crept through the canyon with a calm built from violence. He wasn't a fast draw, but he was a clever one, and he knew how to sniff out weakness. He found the narrow trail that led toward the ranch and started up it. Eliza heard the footsteps above, the crunch of gravel under boots. She told James to stay put, kissed his forehead, and climbed the cellar stairs without a sound. Boone stepped onto the porch just as she kicked the door open. She fired first, the shot grazing his side, but Boone was fast, faster than his size suggested. He dove for cover behind the water trough and returned fire. The bullet smashed through the doorway, missing her by inches. They exchanged 3 more shots. Then silence. "Eliza," he called. "You always had grit." She said nothing. "You were just a girl when we left you. But you grew thorns, huh?" Still, she didn't answer. He edged around the trough, gun raised, just as Boaz stepped from the shadows behind him, saber drawn. Boone spun, but not fast enough. Steel flashed. The blade opened Boone's side, drawing a roar of pain. He stumbled back, gun falling from his hand. Boaz grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the wall. "You rode for blood," Boaz said, his voice low and final. "Now you'll answer for it." Boone coughed, tried to draw his hidden knife, but Eliza was already there, rifle pointed steady at his chest. "You stay down, or you don't get up again," she said. Cole arrived seconds later, bruised and limping, gun still smoking. He looked at Boone, then at Boaz, and finally at Eliza. "You were right," he said. "You didn't need saving." Eliza nodded once, but her eyes were on the boy watching from the cellar, wide-eyed and silent. Behind them, the canyon held its breath. The gang was broken. The wolves had come, and now the desert would bury their bones. The desert wind shifted again at dusk, gentle now, as if it, too, had grown tired of violence. Smoke curled from a pile of broken saddles and bloodied bandanas heaped in the canyon, fed to the fire Boaz had started with dry brush and wordless resolve. No one spoke while it burned. The silence was sacred, reserved for men who chose wrong and died for it. Boone, bound at the wrists and bleeding from the ribs, leaned against the porch post of the farmhouse he had once imagined conquering. His eyes drifted from the hills to the woman watching him with something colder than contempt. "You could kill me," he said, voice hoarse. "You ought to." Eliza didn't answer right away. She stood with the rifle resting against her hip, James nearby, clinging to her sleeve. "I've killed before," she said at last, "but some men deserve to live with what they've become." Boone gave a broken laugh. "That a lesson you teach the boy?" She looked at James, then back at the outlaw who'd burned towns and left children fatherless. "No, he'll learn better." Cole sat on the steps, one boot off, bandaging a sprained ankle with strips torn from a flour sack. He watched Eliza but said nothing. His hat shaded his face, but the weariness in his shoulders betrayed a truth he no longer bothered to hide. He hadn't come for vengeance. He'd come to find a version of himself that might have mattered. Boaz finished dousing the fire. The ashes swirled into the air, riding the wind like dust-born ghosts. He walked back to the porch, wiped soot from his hands, and leaned on the railing. Boone flinched slightly when he passed, instinct remembering the blade. "You got a jail for him?" Boaz asked. "There's a cell in Dunlap," Cole said, "if it's still standing." Boaz nodded. "We ride at dawn. You take him in." "You trust me with that?" Cole asked. "I don't trust you, but I reckon you owe her something that can't be paid here." Cole looked up. "And what about you?" Boaz met his eyes. "This is my land. My story ends here." Eliza said nothing, but her glance lingered on Boaz a little longer than it had before. She could see the man behind the silence now, and she realized it wasn't steel or skill that had saved them, but the quiet, unshakable way he stood between her family and the dark. Later that night, as the stars took their places and coyotes howled from far ridgelines, Eliza sat alone by the dying fire. The boy slept inside, curled against a saddle blanket that still smelled of horse and hay. Boaz walked up behind her, slow as always. She didn't turn. "He'll ask about this day," she said. When he's older. He should, Boaz said. I don't know what I'll tell him. Boaz took a seat beside her, resting his hands on his knees. Tell him the truth. That justice ain't clean. That some men fight with guns, and others with silence. And that his mother stood taller than both. She turned then, just a little. Why'd you stay? After the war, after everything. Why not disappear like the rest? Boaz looked toward the barn, where the horses had calmed and the sky framed their silhouettes in quiet lines. I came here broken. The land didn't ask questions. It let me rebuild, piece by piece. Eliza looked down. And now, he smiled faintly. Now I ain't running. The wind shifted again, gentler this time. From the road, Cole's figure emerged, leading a horse with Boone slumped in the saddle, tied and sullen. I'll leave at first light, Cole said. You'll go east. Eliza asked. Cole nodded. To face it all. Maybe start again. If there's a place left for men like me. She considered that. Don't write, she said. He raised an eyebrow. If you do, she said, I might remember the part of you that could have been. Cole gave a bitter chuckle, but nodded. Fair enough. As he led Boone back to the barn for the night, Boaz stood and stretched. He looked at Eliza one last time before stepping into the darkness. You should rest, he said. She watched him go. Watched the quiet way he disappeared into the ranch house, a shadow among shadows. Morning came, painted in gold and ash. The dust had settled, but the world had shifted, not in ways seen from the road, but in hearts, in glances, in the long silences that follow storms. James stood by the gate, small hand gripping the top rail, eyes fixed on Cole riding off with Boone trailing behind. Eliza joined him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. Who was he? James asked. A man who lost his way, she said. And Mr. Boaz? She looked toward the barn, where Boaz had returned to fixing fences, the saber once more buried beneath the floorboards. His back was to them, but he worked with the quiet assurance of a man whose war was finally over. He's the reason we're still standing, she said. And that's all you need to know. James nodded, satisfied. The sun climbed. Life returned in small ways, water drawn. Fields walked. The stubborn rhythm of survival resumed. But in the stillness, the echoes remained. The tale of a widow, a rider, and a silent man who stood his ground when the wolves came. The kind of story the desert remembers long after the graves have vanished. And somewhere in the distance, the wind carried it on, ashes and echoes, bound to the land,